Good afternoon, everybody, both the people who have wonderfully joined us here at Ancient House this afternoon and those people who are joining us via the magic of Zoom. If you are joining us via Zoom, you can communicate with us using either the chat button at the bottom of your screen, which has got a single speech bubble, or if you want to ask us any questions, please use the Q&A box, which has got 2 speech bubbles, and we'll be able to help you there and also have an opportunity to answer your questions. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you all here to the Ancient House this afternoon, and particularly delighted to welcome our wonderful author, Sufiya Ahmed, who has written an amazing book about Princess Sophia Duleep Singh. And I have to say, I read it all in one night, couldn't put it down. It was absolutely wonderful. And as lots of you who know me know, I love talking about the Duleep Singh sisters, and I'm so happy that there's a new book to bring Sophia's story to a whole new generation of children. And so without further ado, I pass you over to this wonderful author.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Melissa. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming along today on this cold January day, and those at home that have joined online. I'm so delighted to be here today to launch my book, Princess Sophia Duleep Singh, in the place that is connected to her family. What a wonderful, generous gift from her brother, Prince Frederick, to the town. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, my books, and why I wrote a children's book on Sophia. Using this PowerPoint, I'd like to show you some of my other books. So my first one, is going to help me. And the next slide is Secrets of the Henna Girl. This story is about a British Asian girl's struggle against a forced marriage, used in schools by Year 9 in PSHE classes to study human rights, followed by Under the Great Plum Tree, my retelling of an ancient Indian tale of a kind-hearted monkey and her friend the silly crocodile. Next one, Ruby Alice Mission Breaker is about a South Asian girl living in foster care. Ruby is separated from her sister and will do whatever she can to sabotage her stay with her new foster family, so she can be reunited with her sister. Here to Stay is about Mina and her grandpapa who has come to stay, and the story touches upon valuing our elders. And Timmy and the Treasure, a new adventure for the Famous Five. I love the Famous Five as a young girl and was delighted to write a new adventure for the beloved characters that Enid Blyton created. And this one here is Noor Nisay Nayak Khan, about the World War II heroine who was Winston Churchill's spy. She was the great-great-great-granddaughter of the famous Sultan Tipu, the Tiger of Mysore. Noor was sent as a radio operator to Nazi-occupied Paris to communicate secret messages back to London HQ. Noor was one of the 39 women who were sent as agents for the spy agency, the Special Operations Executive, also known as Churchill's Secret Army of Spooks. And of course, my new book, which came out on Thursday, Princess Sophia Duleep Singh, the daughter of the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, a suffragette and Red Cross nurse to injured Indian soldiers during the Great War. So those are my books. We'll just stick to that slide for now. I was asked to include a little bit about my publishing journey today, so I will begin with that and then move on to why I wrote the book on Sophia. It was a childhood dream to be an author. I grew up on a London council estate with strict Asian parents in the 80s. The estate was made up of blocks of flats with a children's park and a public library tucked right in the centre. That library was the only place that my mother allowed me to be on my own. I think of that library as my happy place. I spent Saturdays and entire summer holidays in there. Those shelves of free books opened up new worlds to me, and it triggered my imagination. And from that young age of 8, I knew that I wanted to be a writer too. I took my favourite books, mainly Roald Dahl and Enid Blyton, and wrote the first chapters word to word, and then went off on a tangent to write my own middle and end. They call that fan fiction now. After university, ready to make my dream come true, I brought the Artists and Writers Yearbook and sent off my 3 sample chapters and synopsis to a number of them, really, really confident that one or two would say, yes, your writing is amazing and let's get you published. But, and I'm sure writers are familiar with this, what followed were rejection letters in the post. The first year of rejection letters turned into the second turned into the third, and the third turned into the fourth until 15 years passed. It became a habit. I would write a new story, send it off, and receive a rejection. But I did it because, and I think most writers will understand this, I just felt the need to write, to pour onto paper what was in my head. But it wasn't until that 15th year when a friend of mine suggested that I enter a writing competition. Now, I'd never thought to do that before. I'd never been encouraged to at school, but I thought, why not? And I did. I entered a children's story and it was shortlisted. I didn't win, but that was fine. It was still the most recognition I'd ever received for my writing. And then I forgot about it. And then a few weeks later, the competition people got in touch and said that Penguin, and this was before their merger with Random House, was one of the supporters of the competition, and someone there had noticed my work. And would I like to go along to a meeting for potential new writers that they were seeking? He actually asked, would I like to go to Penguin's offices? Of course I did. I was early for my meeting, well early, and nervous as anything. But on that day, I met the woman who became the editor of my first book, Secrets of the Henna Girl. She wanted something new. I pitched an idea that I had. She liked the sound of it and asked to see a few chapters, but I hadn't actually written it. I'm one of those writers that carries an idea around in my head for a long time, thinking of the character's development and working out the plot. Can you imagine how I felt admitting that I had no words to show her? But she was really nice, and she gave me a year to write it. But she was very, very clear that there was no guarantee that it would get published. I could spend a year on it and she could still say no to me at the end. What did it matter? I'd been receiving rejections from agents for 15 years. This was a real editor at Penguin, and I was going to give it my all. My social life kind of ended for a while, and I wrote a lot of it on the London Underground on my commute. And then 9 months later, I handed it in. She read it, told me she liked it, took it to an acquisitions meeting, and I got my first publishing contract. So really, to all the writers here, competitions can open doors. Please don't think that only the traditional agent route will work. Of course, once my first book was out, I did get an agent. Quite a few were interested. And she had been fantastic in securing, and my new agent, Sophie, has been fantastic in securing publishing deals for all my new books. Which brings me to Sophia. Why did I write it? After my first book was published, I began a new career of doing school visits to talk about Secrets of the Henna Girl and girls' rights. I run a girls' rights workshop where pupils learn how to use the democratic system to effect change. No smashing windows like the suffragettes. They choose, the pupils choose a girls' rights cause and campaign on it. Period poverty is very, very popular. But I do try and get them to focus on equal pay as well, a new generation of feminists. They write letters to their MPs, they design petitions, they design posters for social media, and they learn how to write a press release. But before we do that, I present images of role models. Now, I've included Sophia ever since I heard her biographer, the amazing Anita Arnold, speak about her. But of course, the children and the teachers don't know about this British Indian suffragette, just like they don't know about the other British Indian princess, Noor Inayat Khan, who was a World War II heroine and Churchill's spy. Both these women are role models. Both were present in pivotal moments of British history. And yet we, the British people, don't know them. And I thought, I'm a storyteller. Why don't I write their stories so that children may know them? So Noor's story came out 18 months ago and Sophia a couple of days ago. Sophia lived into her 70s, and in this book I focused on 3 parts of her life. Her suffragette activities and also next slide. Her role as a Red Cross nurse at a Brighton hospital, tending to the injured Indian soldiers during World War I. It is said that English white nurses were not allowed to touch Indian soldiers. Hearing this, Sophia signed up to nurse them, just like another couple in the southwest of England who happened to be here at the time, a lawyer called Gandhi and his wife Kasturba. The British Empire played a part in Sophia's story. Sophia's father, Duleep Singh, was removed from his kingdom as a boy and exiled to England at the age of 15. He became a favourite of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert until he rebelled. As a child, Sophia witnessed her father's rejection of British rule in India. He fell out with Queen Victoria and was convinced that he could take the kingdom back with the help of the Russians. He left England in 1886. He was then, in modern terms, cancelled. As a young girl, Sophia would have thought her father's opposition to the British Empire was foolish. Yet in Sophia's lifetime, Britain did end its rule of India in 1947, and she witnessed the struggle for it. Which led me to this question about her. Where did she belong? With the next slide. So this is a slide of Sophia and her two sisters, Bamba and Catherine, on the day when they came out in society. Her older sisters chose to settle abroad. Bamba chose British India and then what became Pakistan, and gave herself the title of the Princess of the Punjab. Catherine chose Germany, although she did return in retirement to be close to Sophia. Sophia chose England. She may have had heritage from another place, but she chose England as her home. And in that act, so many children will identify with her. In Britain today, 1 in 3 children of primary school age are of colour. That's 33% that need to know that they or their parents or grandparents can come from another place, but this, England, is home because they choose it to be. I can definitely relate to that. Also, of course, to her women's rights activism. I have to add that to my own sadness, I've only known about Sophia for a few years. I've always known about her father because as a person of Indian heritage, I learned about Indian historical figures through the Bollywood films that were played in our house on Sunday afternoons and books that my father purchased for me when we visited India. The Mughals, especially Akbar and Shah Jahan, Tipu Sultan, Queen Lakshmi of Jhansi, Bhagat Singh, Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru and Jinnah, but never the Duleep Singh daughters. I wish that I'd known about Sophia when I was growing up. It would have helped me with my sense of belonging, that in the suffragette movement there was a woman who looked like me, that we were there too, just like the 1.3 million Indian soldiers who came to fight for king and country in World War I. Could you have the next slide, which is a slide here of the soldiers. And the 2.5 million soldiers who came to fight as Empire soldiers in World War II against fascism, the largest volunteer army in history. That we, the people of South Asian heritage, didn't just come along to build Britain after the war, but that we have been here since Queen Elizabeth I signed trade licenses that allowed her merchants to trade with India in 1600, those that became the agents of the East India Company. There is 400 years of history, and the discussion of it should help our children's sense of belonging in the country of their birth. There are so many stories that can be told from the 16th century onwards. The Lashkars, the ayahs, the students, the lawyers, the soldiers. At the time of the empire, England was the mother country, and Indians travelled and settled here. So the idea that South Asian presence is only post-World War II is just not true. Children need to feel a sense of belonging. They need to feel pride in the British Asian suffragette, the British Asian spy, the British Asian soldier in both world wars, and all the other British Asians who made England their home for 400 years. It is a truer version of history. It is an inclusive history, and one that can give a sense of belonging to children of colour, and just as importantly, encourage a sense of acceptance and understanding from British white children of our shared history. Princess Sophia Duleep Singh is a British role model, and I'm hoping that when the suffragettes are taught in schools, her name will be known by all children. I'm going to stop there and just do a reading from the book now, if that's okay. And then we'll move on to a question and answer session, if that's okay. And then the people online too. So the scene I wanted to read from, just to introduce you to the book, is one that I really enjoyed writing. So Sophia was goddaughter to Queen Victoria and had met her often. And I saw it also as an opportunity to introduce one of Queen Victoria's favourites in the scene, who some of you may know about, Munshi Abdul Karim, one of her favourite servants in later life, a friend. So here we go. I have to wear my glasses for this. It's too small. Right. Despite the high ceiling of the room in Buckingham Palace, it is warm from a roaring fire. The old lady looks tiny in the chair beside the fireplace. The orange-red flames give her pale, wrinkled skin a slight glow. She is dressed in full black, a widow still mourning her dead husband, even though it's 32 years since his death. My own clothes are dark too. I wear them to mourn Papa. Papa died on the night of the 21st October 1893. Freddie travelled to Paris to bring Papa's body back to England. Although Papa had confessed to us that he had converted back to Sikhism, Victor decided that he should have a Christian funeral. We'll bury him in Thetford, the same as Mama and Eddie. We all agreed, and so the Maharaja, Duleep Singh, was buried in the graveyard, a short distance from Elfton House, the palace he had built that was fit for a Maharaja, and which he'd had to sell to pay off his debts. Both my parents are gone now, but it is my younger brother that I miss the most. It seems as if my shadow has left me. Today I have been invited to tea with my godmother, Queen Victoria, whom I have always referred to as Queen V. A maid brings in a small silver tray. Would you like to pour, little Sophia? Queen V asks. I am 17 years old, and she still refers to me as little Sophia. Shuffling forward in my chair, I lean over the tray and prepare the tea. I know just how Queen V likes it. I have poured it for her many times before. We were distressed to learn about poor Duleep, she says, sadness tinging her voice. She is one of the few people in the world to call him by his name. The other is her eldest son, Edward, the Prince of Wales. He was Papa's best friend and often stayed with us at Elfton House. We know him as Uncle Bertie. Of course, that was before Papa decided that he hated the Queen and her heir for robbing him of his kingdom. He was very foolish to think the Russians would help him, Queen V says, shaking her head. Our poor gullible Duleep was taken in by their empty promise to restore his lost kingdom. Why did he doubt that the British Empire rightfully rules? I say nothing as I hand her the cup of tea. We forgave your Papa, she continues, taking a small sip. She always refers to herself as we to highlight that she speaks for the whole of Britain and the 1/5 of the world that she rules. We are glad he asked for our forgiveness. Bertie forgave him too. Duleep came to his senses in the end. One man cannot rise up against Britannia. It is extremely easy to have one's ears filled with nonsense. He was led up the garden path by those Russians. My lips tightened at the mention of the Russians. Such mischief makers. I do hate them for polluting Papa's mind with impossible dreams. Queen V is right. The British Empire is mighty and no one can stand up against it. I did not give an audience to the new wife, she reveals. Scandalous woman for stealing your Papa away from his lovely Maharani. Your Mama was such a shy and pious woman. She did not deserve to be treated like that. Abandoned by her husband for another woman and left with 6 children to rear. It is a good thing we were at hand to help her. We are very grateful, I say humbly. You Duleep Singhs are very precious to me, Queen V says, her voice sounding gentle. More than you know. I can only stare at her, unsure what to say. It brings me much sorrow to see you children without your Mama and Papa. I still have Victor, Freddie, Bamba and Catherine, I mumble. I do not mention the passing of Eddie, and neither does the Queen. I wonder if she has forgotten that the 6th and youngest child of her dear friend Duleep has died. Indeed, you do have your brothers and sisters, she says, and we will do all we can to make sure you are cared for. Duleep was incredibly special to me. He was one of my favourites. We sit in awkward silence until she changes the subject. And how are you, little Sophia? I am well, I reply. I enjoy music and dancing, Mr. Oliphant says I'm one of the best horsewomen he has seen, and my voice drifts off as the Queen's attention is diverted to the door. A servant walks in. He is Indian, tall and with a broad chest. Indian servants are not new in the palace. Queen V has been served by many of them in the times that I have visited her. This man, however, is the first of these servants that Queen V has looked up to and smiled at like that. Little Sophia, let me introduce you to my Munshi, Abdul Karim. Good afternoon, Princess, the man says, bowing his head. Good afternoon, my mother. Munshi means teacher in Hindustani, the Queen says warmly. Did you know that, Sophia? Hindustani, I repeat. Sorry, Oliver, can we just have the next slide? Because I forgot. I wanted to show, and the next one. This is Abdul Karim on the screen. So this is the scene we're imagining. It's actually Urdu, Munshi says softly, as if expecting me to know. I do not know Urdu, Punjabi, or any other Indian language, I say. Of course you don't, Queen Bee says dismissively. Why would you? I feel a pang of resentment at her implication. I will never need to use Indian languages, especially Punjabi, because I will never be allowed to visit India. Have you ever been to India, Munshi? I ask curiously. Queen Bee and Munshi laugh. Dear Princess, he says, I am from India. What's it like? It is the most beautiful land. It has a hot climate, so that we never feel the cold. Everywhere you look, there are colourful satins and silks. The air is filled with the aroma of spices, and it is the home of the heavenly fruit. Heavenly fruit, I ask, perplexed. What on earth is that? He nods mysteriously, but reveals nothing. Queen Fee giggles like a little girl. Oh, tell her. The mango, Munshi declares dramatically, curving his right hand around an invisible fruit. It is the sweetest, most delectable piece of flesh that you will ever taste. The sweet flavour will burst on your tongue, making your mouth water for more, even as you eat it. I stare in fascination at Munshi. Mango? I've never heard of such a thing. Papa had never mentioned mangoes. Perhaps he had forgotten about them, as he had been forced to leave India when he was still a young boy. I would like to eat one, please, I blurt out, my mouth watering. It's not in our fate, Queen Bee says quietly. I can't work out if she means me and her or just her. We too have yearned to taste this heavenly fruit, but it's not to be, she adds. Why? I do not understand why she has been denied this. After all, she is the queen. I have ordered shipments of the mango many times, Munshi explains. Alas, the fruit has always rotted completely by the time it reaches these shores. The ants have feasted magnificently on the mango sweet flesh, leaving only the stone pit for Her Majesty. I want to go to India to taste it, I declare. Queen Bee sighs. We do too, Sophia, but I'm afraid it is not allowed for either of us. This is news to me. Who can stop the Queen from doing what she wants? She's the Queen. Why can't you go? They would kill me, she says simply. My mouth falls open again. Why? Because we are the Empress of India, and there are people there who do not believe in our right to rule them. In this very moment, I do not care who rules who, for I am overcome with the need to taste a mango. But you must let me go, Your Majesty, and I can taste it for both of us. Another heavy sigh, and she sits back in her chair. Munshi steps to the side, obedient servant that he is. I'm afraid it's out of the question, Queen Bee says in a resigned tone. It would not be safe. For me? For the Empire. You live here, and we rule in your family's place. If you set foot in India, the people might decide they want you, not us, to rule them. They might rise up against us. It is safer for everyone concerned, for the Duleep Singh children to live here under our watch. Safer for the Empire and the people of India. It is the price we must pay for peace. I'm going to stop there, but that's the scene with Queen Bee and the mango, which in the book, when Sophia does go to India, she does taste, and it just dripped down her fingers and all over her mouth. How are we for time, Melissa? I'm sure we want to Q&A. And there was another scene I wanted to read. Is that okay? Yes, so we mentioned that she was also during the Great War when she was a nurse, and she tended to injured Indian soldiers in Brighton hospitals. And the scene is when she talks to them and they tell her about some of their experiences. So setting the scene, she's sitting with a soldier called Ahmed, and she asks him, you know, what happened, and this is the scene that follows. How did you get injured? On the battlefield, a shell exploded a few feet from me. If I had stepped out first, I would have been dead. Adil, my friend, and owner of the notebook, took a full blast of it. I owe him my life, and stops mid-sentence. He is talking about those dear to him again. I do not push to hear more and allow him to compose himself. I was in and out of consciousness for days. I lay where I fell on the field. I dared not move in case I was targeted with bullets from the other side. It's always better to play dead. I could see Adil. His face was turned towards me. I knew he was dead. His eyes were wide open. He didn't blink even once. I kept blinking to remind myself that I was alive. I don't know how long I lay there. The stretcher bearers came. They were like angels, those two young boys. They told me afterwards that they were from a place called Bolton. We do not know where that is. They carried me to the field hospital. One fellow said this notebook was lying next to me. He assumed it was mine and picked it up. It must have fallen out of Adil's pocket when he fell to the ground with the impact of the shell. A tear trickles down his face. I wish now that I hadn't asked him about the battlefield. It was so selfish of him to push. It was so selfish of me to push him to relive the most traumatic experience of his life. We sit in silence for a while, and I rack my brain for something else to say. Ahmed, however, returns to the topic of the best friend he had lost. Adil and I grew up together. We came from the same village. We Muslims and Sikhs lived together. On the day of our departure, our mothers stood side by side, wearing matching white shalwar kameez with dupattas on their heads. They both cried and wanted to know why we had to go so far away for war. We promised we would return. More tears trickled down his face. How will I face Adil's mother when I return home? He sobs. Two left from our village, only one will return. The other will lie forever in a foreign land, away from his family and his ancestral fields. Nobody will pray for his soul's peace at his grave on the Muslim holy day of Friday or on their Eid festivals. He will just lie in the ground with the others forgotten. I don't think the soldiers will be forgotten, I say gently. We will remember them. I'll stop there with that scene as well. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And there's such moving scenes and those sort of that pivotal scene around tea with the Queen. And there's something about that, isn't there? That tea we think of as really English, but of course it isn't. It's only come here because of empire. There's the idea that you know, all of the multiculturalism of our current country is there in our cup of tea, and the leaves and the sugar that's all coming together. So it's really interesting how tea is so central to all these different cultures. And wonderful to include that scene in Brighton Pavilion as well. I know when we had our Sophia exhibition here, we had the mirror, didn't we, Oliver, that was a gift to one of the soldiers that she nursed. So lovely to have that included in the book as well. Wonderful. So now we have some questions. We have some questions coming in on Zoom, but also if anyone in the room would like to ask any questions, now is the time. Jane.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you so much for the readings and presentation. What was the most challenging aspect of Sophia's story to tell, please?
Well, the thing is, she never kept a diary. We don't know much about her. A lot of it has come from the research that Anita Arnon did, her biographer. So it was really how to write a 40,000-page children's book and fill it. And I had to think about her for a long time. And I thought, well, her story is, you know, the whole family background is against empire. You know, the father's experience. So I wanted to include that. And then, of course, everything about her suffragette activities. Black Friday, when the suffragettes marched on Parliament and were attacked, basically. It was just, from a writing point of view, it was how to bring it all together. So I just kind of divided it between, in her childhood, that's when she really, empire was not something that she would challenge, which is very different to her sister Bamba, who was the eldest daughter, who was very close to her father. And we think of her as the one who was like her grandmother, Maharani Jinda, who fought the British, at the time in the Anglo-Indian War. So I think because Sophia was the youngest, second from youngest, she was kind of protected from it all, what her father was going through. So the story reads like, the child reader will see everything about the empire that she would have experienced, which is why I've written it first person. How would she have viewed it? And then the suffragette activities, and then the war. So it's like a division, but the book itself in schools can cover 3 parts: the empire, suffragette, and World War One as well. And especially with that scene with Adil and Amit. I think it's important for school children to know, about the Indian soldiers' contribution to both wars. They were both, volunteer armies that came to fight for king and country, and we should remember them. So, thank you. So, let's do that.
I have a question from our Zoom audience. It's Teresa, and she's asking, do you see your books making a difference in schools and with the school children that you speak to? And with the passing, or hopefully not passing, of the nationalities bill, do you think your work is going to be even more important in the future?
Oh, you're putting me up against Priti Patel. I feel myself being attacked in the Daily Mail soon. I hope the books make a difference. I mean, that's why I've written them. The first book I wrote was Noor Inayat Khan, and I wrote it entirely because I was doing these workshops and forget the children, the teachers didn't know about her. It's like, well, I can't go to every single school in the country and do my workshop. Let's write a book about this. And my agent was great, and the publishers were great in getting the book out. So Sophia's just come out a few days, but we know from the reaction from Noor that the schools have picked it up. There's a charity called Book Trust, and they chose the Noor Inayat Khan book as one of the few chosen for this year that goes out to as many schools as they can. So there's support as well, and they classed it as a future classic, so that was really nice. And I'm hoping Sophia will do the same. I think at the end of the day, if you want to affect change, you have to do it in your own way. I'm a storyteller, and I believe that these women, Sophia and Noor, need to be in classrooms. And again, when I did the presentation, I'm really interested in the idea of belonging. So I didn't know about Sophia growing up. I didn't know about the World War I soldiers or World War II until I was in my 20s. And the only reason I got to know about them was because a conservative peer, about 20 years ago, Baroness Srila Flather, campaigned for a memorial for them. And that's the only time it actually got into the media. And initially, my whole reaction was, well, I wasn't taught it in school, so it can't be true. All of us go, no, it's not true. And then realizing, well, all these people, these historians, these activists, are going out and doing the research and saying, well, actually, these people came. And, World War II as well, Empire soldiers made a difference, big difference. And the Americans always remembered, but the Empire soldiers aren't, and they should be, absolutely should be. Second World War, 2.5 million volunteered to come here to fight. And that's the largest volunteer army in history, And then, of course, at the same time, in India, you had Congress Party with the independence movement, Gandhi and Nehru and everyone being jailed, prisoned, and yet all these soldiers coming. There are so many sides to all these stories. So for me, I'm interested in that sense of belonging. I think, had I known about Sophia when I was a teenager, interested in girls' rights, women's rights, learning about the suffragettes, she would have made a huge difference to me. A woman who looked like me was in that movement. It would have been me looking in at what other people have done. So I'm hoping that, when school children read about Noor and about Sophia as well, they can connect to her. But at the same time, I would really, really say this and stress this to schools that, you know, I'm not just interested in children of colour reading this book. The books are for everyone, for all children. You know, there shouldn't be this idea that, you know, this is only for these children and not for these children. It's for everyone. And what we're stressing here is the Britishness of Noor and of Sophia as well. And I hope that in the book, you know, I mentioned that Sophia chose England, and I could really relate to that, because despite her, you know, her heritage, and she did go to India, she traveled there with her sisters. Bamba chose to stay there. You know, Catherine chose Germany. But Sophia came back here, and with, you know, her brothers Victor and Freddie, they chose England, and we have all chosen England as well, you know. So I'm hoping, and not just these books, again, I mentioned that we've got 400 years of history here, and I think it's really, really dangerous, this narrative that seems to be out there, that South Asian people, and we understand this from what happened to the Windrush generation as well, that we are just post-war World War II people that came just to build Britain. That's simply not true. And we need to change that. And the only way we can do that is through stories and talking about it and having you wonderful people hosting events like this.
Oh, thank you. And I think for lots of local children here who know about Sophia because of the activities we've done here, and thinking about History Club group who put on a play telling the story of Sophia a few years ago. They really feel she's their princess just as much as, you know, she's Norfolk's princess just as much as she's comes from this Indian heritage. So it's really, really wonderful. Anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask? This is always nerve-wracking for people in the room. It's easier for people to type, isn't it, from behind? Oh yes.
One of the things that I think that the cover shows is her efforts in sort of the suffragette space, and I think a lot of the time when we hear about, you know, the suffragette movement, we don't really hear about her. So anything that you came across researching about her in that movement, and if she was able to get away with anything extra because she was the Queen's favourite, I'd love to know.
Absolutely. And so the reason we don't know much about her is entirely because she was not arrested.
Yeah.
The royal family had to protect her because she was goddaughter to Queen Victoria. It would have embarrassed them to have her arrested. So, and I think Sophia really felt that because her friends were being, you know, imprisoned, they were being force-fed. We know all the stories of what the suffragettes went through in prison, but that didn't happen to her. And I think she felt that somehow she was lacking in the contribution because she wasn't in there. But she was able to do other things through her position, through her influence. You know, she set up the tax society, not to pay tax as a way to object. But we don't know about her because it's just not been written down. Yeah, but absolutely, she was protected because of her position at the same time.
Lovely, thank you. I have a final question. You've written about two amazing princesses who are both British and come from an Indian heritage. Have you got your sights set on anybody else for a new book?
I have always discussing. If you've read the book, you'll see that I give a lot of space to Bamba, the eldest daughter, because I absolutely love her. She was so defiant and she was so true to herself, I think. And all of that came, I think, because she was the eldest daughter. So she kind of, I think, absorbed everything, witnessed everything her father was going through, Duleep Singh was going through when he thought, hang on, I've been robbed of my kingdom and I want it back. Saw the way he was treated. And also, I think, was sensitive to being treated differently because of her skin colour. And so I'm sure it's very, very different there. There was supremacy. You could only have empire because the white man ruled. Otherwise, how would you get away with it, basically? So I think she was sensitive to that, objected to it, and I would love to write about her. She's like that. When you're at school and there's an older girl that you really admire, it's one of those. I want to be like her. and I would love to write about Bamba. So let's see.
Yes, well, fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you ever so much for coming to launch this book in Sophia's Brothers Museum.
Yes.
It's absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure I speak for everybody when saying a huge thank you for that really inspiring talk. Thank you so much.